Hello everyone. Welcome to the Ocean Sound Storytelling Channel. I am the storyteller, and today I am so happy to be with you. You may be curled up under a blanket or listening with your ears on a soft pillow. Wherever you are, whatever the time, thank you for being here. Before we begin with an interesting story, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, so I know you enjoy relaxing moments like this. Where are you from? Send me a little hello in the comments. I would love to know which corner of the world you are listening from. Now, relax your body. Close your eyes and let the gentle waves take you into a gentle story, a little strange, a little mysterious, but warm enough to lull you to sleep all night long. So, are you ready? Tonight's story begins. Hello, Mary. Dear Mary, the doctors are asking me to write notes. Notes to people, to say thank you for things. And you are obviously my first choice. Thank you for teaching me how to fold origami. In every fold of the paper, I found immense comfort. I do it now that the doctor said I am stable. They forced some food down my throat and told me a bunch of lies. Now I fold origami and argue with doctors. Not a very interesting life. I wish they would let me talk to you. Aubrey. September 19th. Mary, the doctors are pushing for more notes. They say it will help me through past trauma or something. I tune them out when they talk sappy to me. But here I am, trying to get them off my back. Today, I would like to thank you for all the cookies I got when I escaped my house and came to yours. I have a very distinct memory of them. They had a hint of hazelnut in them, rich and fluffy, but they always left my brain fuzzy, making it hard to focus or really think much. Everything seemed so much easier after eating those cookies. I didn't feel a need to argue, to prove my point. I felt so much better. Normally, I wouldn't like to feel so impressionable, but it was strangely soothing then. Aubrey, September 22nd. Hello again. You wouldn't believe the fuss the doctors are making, Mary. They're quite upset I'm writing to you. Did you know they still believe the kidnapping story? I keep telling them you didn't have anything to do with my disappearance. Anyway, I've decided to continue this ritual of sending you letters. The doctors say I don't have to, but it's strangely liberating. So I think I'll thank you for the time we spent together. Everyone keeps saying that you were cruel, that you locked me up, but I distinctly remember you giving me a nice bed, food, and water. You talked to me. You understood my mind. When I woke up screaming, you wouldn't assume things. You didn't rush over and treat me like there was something wrong with me. You didn't tell me that it wasn't real or try to reassure me. You simply smiled at me. It was refreshing. When I told you about how beautiful fire was when it stretched its long fingers, curling around a finger, nobody understood me like you did. So thank you for that, I guess. Aubrey. September 26th. Hi, Mary. I had a memory come back to me today. Do you remember the time that I snuck into your house? It was sometime in mid-winter. It was snowing, and I told you that I had never gotten to try hot chocolate, so you wanted to help me make it. You got out chocolate bars. You said that you had made it all by hand. I only remember that because I had asked why the chocolate tasted different. But that's beside the point. You gave me a knife. I was only 11 at the time, and I hadn't been given many opportunities with it, and I cut myself. This was when we had just started meeting. Instead of crying, I just looked at the blood. Then I asked why it did that, and why my finger stung. You just looked at me and told me that it was blood, and explained the human body. Nobody treated me as intelligent due to my many abnormal behaviors. So when you explained the human body and injuries, I was fascinated. I became obsessed with the concept of injury, and you helped explain it. So thank you for teaching me about that. Aubrey, October 2nd. Mary, the doctors keep telling me about my case. Keep telling me so many reasons why I should not be thankful I met you. Should not write notes to you. But I don't understand why. They weren't there. They didn't understand everything that happened. They don't understand why you kept me hidden, why you took me away from the world. They keep telling me that being away from reality for so long messed with my memories and my head. They keep telling me, I know it's hard to process, and your brain is making sense of fear in a way that is easier to handle. What happened wasn't like what you remember. You were kidnapped, Aubrey, and Mary wasn't a nice lady. And I keep telling them, no, 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 no. You don't understand. She was a nice lady, a very nice lady. She taught me lots of things. She was nice, nicer than lots of people. And they keep telling me, no, 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 no. And I can't stand it. They keep using words I don't like. They used the word abuse, torture. If it wasn't for you, I would have lost my temper already. So today, I would like to thank you for teaching me patience. When you kept me away from everyone, you taught me lots of things. You taught me to be patient, for one thing. And even though I wasn't always the most comfortable, I'm better off now. I can sit in a quiet room for hours without doing anything. I can wait and wait without ever getting impatient. Although the doctors are saying that my comfortableness in isolation is not patience, it is a response to trauma. But I know they're wrong, so thank you for teaching me patience. Aubrey, October 6th. Hello? I'm getting tired of these people telling me things about you, Mary. They want me to stop writing to you, and I'm getting frustrated. They told me that you were mean, that you hurt me. But you never hurt me that bad. You were just trying to teach me. I asked you to teach me. That's what it was. It was always that. They keep telling me lies, so many lies. And I'm starting to have nightmares. They tell me horrible things. They say that you tied me to a bed frame because you were mean. And I keep telling them to stop lying because I'm getting nightmares and fake memories. I had one specific nightmare that I remember. I was bleeding badly, and you kept saying the same thing. You spilled a drop, and you said it meanly, but I can't remember that. When I woke up, I thought I did, but it can't be real, because you are nice. I'm positive, and the doctors won't listen, and it's all so frustrating, because they told me that you were cruel, and now I have nightmares. I read about my case online. What they're saying you did to me is awful. I got nightmares. They're incredibly vivid. Now, before I lost all my sanity, I took up an old hobby, knitting. This is another thing you taught me to do. Even though my mother is claiming to be the one who has taught me, I know it was you. I'm not allowed to keep anything I knit. And I can't knit unless somebody in a room watches me. They think I am going to try to kill myself. Not that I can blame them. I have violent tendencies. They also say that I have masochism. They say I enjoy pain. It's not something I considered before. I was always fascinated by the idea of it. I was never afraid of experiencing it. But regardless, knitting has been wonderful. Thank you for teaching me to knit. It's one of the only things that I enjoy. That and origami, of course. Anyway, I probably won't get to write to you much more. I barely managed to write these notes. It won't be long before the pity wears off, and I can't cry my way into a new piece of paper. Aubrey, October 8th. Mary, 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 Mary. I like your name. M-A-R-Y. Something soothing about it. I'm sure that this will be the last letter I write to you. And not because I can't get more paper. The doctors have decided that I cannot be trusted. Even though some of them say that I'm remembering. I'm not. It's just fake memories. Nightmares induced by the horror stories they told me. The lies. 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 So many lies. They think I've gone crazy. They didn't say that exactly. They think it's from trauma. Trauma. They use that word so much. They are moving me to a psychiatric ward. I've been in a normal hospital. They were monitoring my health. Now, they've decided that I am dangerous to myself or others. In their defense, I have become worse at hiding myself. I lash out easier, but it's oddly liberating to be able to lash out, to get angry, to let the little voice in the back of my head, the one that wants chaos, the one that wants to watch the effect of pain on someone's face. You taught me that. You showed me how happy you were when you let the little voice in your head have more influence. They don't think it's the voice in my head. They think it's the trauma and the 12 years that I spent missing. The, as they say, damage Mary inflicted caused it. So, that's what I have to thank you for today. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to be crazy sometimes. Other people's screams will stop. But mostly, thank you for giving me an excuse. The girl who was raised better, the one who has no reason to hurt people, gets more disgusted looks than me. Little me got in trouble when I hurt others. But the psychotic, traumatized girl who was kidnapped and tortured for 12 years gets a free pass. Goodbye, Mary. I'll miss you, even if I'm not supposed to. Aubrey, Dance of the Damned. The dimly lit bar exuded an aura of faded elegance. The soft glow of neon lights casting a surreal ambiance over the audience, who sat in hushed anticipation. As the spotlight flickered to life, illuminating the makeshift stage at one end of the room, the murmurs of conversation died down, replaced by an air of eager expectation. As the curtains slowly parted, revealing the expanse of the stage, a solitary figure stood poised at its center, the ballerina, with a grace that seemed to transcend the earthly realm. The ballerina came to life as the first notes of the music filled the air. Her movements were a symphony of fluidity and precision, each step a testament to years of tireless dedication and unwavering discipline. Like a delicate flower swaying in the breeze, she floated across the stage, her every motion a masterpiece. Her arms moved languidly, weaving a tale of love and longing with each sweep and arc. She beckoned the audience into her world with each movement, inviting them to share her emotions. Poised and elegant, the ballerina commanded the stage with a commanding and serene presence. Her posture was flawless, her form a study in perfect alignment. She seemed to defy gravity, soaring effortlessly through the air with divine grace. Her footwork was a marvel to behold, each step executed with exquisite precision and grace. From the delicate steps to the lightning-fast turns, her movements were a testament to the strength and agility of the human body. The audience watched in awe as she leaped and twirled across the stage, her every movement a testament to the power of the human spirit. But beyond the technical prowess, the ballerina's ability to convey emotion captivated the audience. With each extension of her leg and each arch of her back, she imbued her performance with a depth of feeling that resonated with all who watched. From the depths of despair to the heights of ecstasy, her dance spoke to the universal human experience, transcending language and culture. The ballerina executed a series of mesmerizing turns that left the audience breathless. Spinning gracefully across the stage, she seemed to defy the laws of physics, her movements a blur of motion and light. But as the music swelled to its crescendo and the time for her final bow arrived, a sudden sense of unease settled over the bar. With a flourish, the ballerina prepared to take her bow, her movements graceful and poised. But then disaster struck in a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity. Inexplicably, she stumbled, her perfect balance faltering as she fell to the ground in a heap. Gasps of shock echoed through the bar as the audience watched in horror. But it was what happened next that genuinely chilled them to the bone. As the ballerina lay on the stage, everything around her seemed to shift and blur, as if reality was unraveling. The once vibrant colors of the stage faded to a dull, lifeless gray, and a sickening sense of dread hung heavy in the air. And then, from her wrists and ankles, blood began to flow, staining the stage crimson red. It pooled around her, a macabre tableau of horror and despair. With a sudden jerk, the ballerina rose to her feet, her movements jerky and unnatural. It was as if she were a marionette manipulated by unseen hands, her body moving in grotesque contortions that defied all logic and reason. The audience watched in stunned silence as the once graceful ballerina twisted and convulsed, her limbs bending at impossible angles. And then, with a horrifying realization, they understood what was happening. She was no longer in control of her own body. With each agonizing movement, it became clear that she was under control by some evil force, a dark presence that lurked unseen in the shadows. As she danced her final, nightmarish dance, the audience could only watch her twisted performance in helpless horror. They knew they were witnessing something more sinister than a dance. They saw the manifestation of pure, unadulterated evil, a force beyond comprehension that had seized control of the ballerina's soul. As the ballerina rose from the stage floor, her once graceful movements became grotesque spasms of pain and fear. With each jerky motion, her bones fractured and splintered, and the sickening sound of snapping echoed through the bar like a macabre symphony. Her limbs twisted at unnatural angles, each movement a torment of agony that etched lines of suffering onto her pale, sweat-drenched face. Her eyes, wide with terror, pleaded for release. Still, her mouth was closed by wire that had inexplicably wrapped around her lips, sealing them shut with cruel finality. Blood dripped from the small holes punctured by the wire, staining her pristine costume with crimson droplets. With each convulsion, her skin ripped, revealing raw, red flesh beneath. The air was thick with the metallic scent of blood and the sickening stench of decay, a suffocating fog that enveloped the stage in a shroud of horror. The audience watched in horrified fascination as the ballerina's body contorted and twisted, her movements growing more frantic and erratic with each passing moment. It was as if she looked torn apart from the inside out, her very essence consumed by the dark forces that held her in their grasp. The once pristine costume began to tear and shred with each jerky movement. Fabric rents apart like paper, exposing swaths of pale, sweat-sickened skin beneath. The delicate tutu, once a symbol of elegance and grace, now hung in tatters around her hips, the shredded remnants barely clinging to her broken form. With each agonizing twist and contortion, more of her flesh lay bare to the horrified audience. The delicate lace and satin that had once adorned her body now lay in tatters on the stage floor, a grotesque parody of the beauty that had once been. And as the last shreds of fabric fell away, the ballerina stood naked and exposed before the stunned onlookers. Her body, once a vision of perfection, was now marred by bruises and welts, the result of the unspeakable torture she had endured. The audience, pinned to their chairs by a mixture of terror and morbid fascination, could only watch in horror as the ballerina's broken form was laid bare before them. There was nowhere to look and hide from the gruesome spectacle unfolding on stage. Everyone was dressed like ballerinas and knew they would dance on that stage. They wanted to run, but couldn't move, as an invisible force controlled them. As the ballerina's tortured dance finally came to an end, the audience was left to grapple with the horrifying images that had seared into their minds, a grim testament to the depths of depravity that lurked within the shadows of the human soul. And then, with a final, gut-wrenching spasm, she collapsed to the ground in a heap of broken bones and shredded flesh. Her once beautiful form stood reduced to nothing more than a grotesque pile of meat and bone, a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurked beneath the surface of reality. A palpable tension hung in the air, suffocating the bar in an oppressive silence. The audience, gripped by horror and fascination, could not tear their eyes away from the grotesque spectacle unfolding before them. Everything disappeared into darkness, leaving only screams. The darkness seemed to last forever. Suddenly, as the final notes of the haunting melody faded into the darkness, the stage erupted into blinding light, illuminating a scene of unspeakable horror. Standing at the center of the stage was another woman, clad in a tattered ballerina costume. Yet, any semblance of grace or beauty was shattered by the sight of the twisted iron-spiked wire that bound her limbs, cutting into her flesh with every movement. Where her eyes should have been, there were only bloody craters oozing with the sickening evidence of unspeakable violence. Her mouth, too, was sealed shut with glue, denying her even the semblance of a voice to cry out in pain. With a start, the woman began to dance, her movements jerky and erratic as she struggled against the cruel restraints that bound her. Blood spilled onto the stage with each tortured step, staining the pristine floorboards with a sickening crimson hue. As the grotesque spectacle unfolded on stage, 10 figures sat in silence, their faces hidden behind intricate designs of porcelain and feathers, giving them an air of anonymity and intrigue. Dressed uniformly in black suits and dresses, the men and women held glasses filled with a dark crimson liquid, which remained a mystery to those around them. With each sickening snap of bone, they raised their glasses in a silent toast, the red liquid sloshing gently within. Their reactions were chillingly composed, their expressions hidden behind the masks as they watched the ballerina's torment unfold with a sense of detached amusement. To them, the grotesque display was not a source of horror, but a form of entertainment, a dreadful performance to be savored and enjoyed. And so, as the final horrific act played out on stage, and the ballerina's lifeless form lay crumpled on the ground, the figures rose from their seats in unison, their masks giving nothing away as they started to laugh. What lies beneath? Summer 1972. Road trip! Pam screamed over the sound of the jukebox. She had shoved her chair aside, since there was no dance floor in this hole-in-wall bar. Her arms in the air, hips bumping and grinding to the beat, feet barely moving. After half a pitcher, she could sway her hips or move her feet. She opted for swaying to Otis Redding. Wastin' time. Barb was still capable of doing a fair lip sync of Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Pam a tad too wasted to remember all the words, fancying themselves the last hippies, the two girls planning to leave their homes in Georgia and head for the Frisco Bay. A few weeks earlier, Barb had bought a '58 VW van, orange, of course, Whoever had owned Old Orange before had taken out the rear benches and built a sleeping platform, leaving plenty of storage underneath. About 10 days into the trip, by the time they came to Houston, they realized that the air hose, a vital necessity to cool the engine, would not stay where it was supposed to be. So, taking the southern route through the desert was out of the question. So, they turned right toward Dallas. Old Orange had a few other minor quirks. For instance, the radio only worked in third and fourth gear. The windshield wipers only went one way. After each swipe, whoever was in the passenger seat needed to pound on the windshield to dislodge the wiper. Orange's top speed was 50 mph if the wind was at their back, a little faster if going downhill. The starter had left them in New Orleans, which showed remarkable good taste for a starter and made Pam the designated pusher. In Dallas, they learned the expensive lesson that transmissions require fluids. They spent a week in a tiny village at Lake Superior Shore, where the main entertainment was going to the dump and watching the bears feed. Pointing west again, the plan was to bypass Denver and go to Aspen. Orange was willing but unable to keep the minimum speed of 40 mph while climbing up I-70. Once again, a detour was needed. They headed north into Wyoming before turning west again. 2 days later, they left Jackson Hole after breakfast and entered the Grand Tetons with its raw, relatively young peaks. Mid-morning, they pulled in at a rest stop next to a small lake. It was mid-June. The North Slope had been warmed by the sun for several weeks and was carpeted with wildflowers, every color in the rainbow, and all the ones in between. The south side was still holding on to patches of snow. This contrast, on either side of the still water, reflecting the blue sky, was breathtaking. While Barb was coaxing enough life from the Coleman stove to heat water, Pam stretched her legs. Avoiding the clumps of snow and sludge, she made her way up the south hill. Feeling a rumble in the ground, she was stunned at the sight. When she looked over the top of the hill, animals, moose, elk, deer, rabbits, skunks, buffalo, the odd wolf, all running eastward. Pam was a city girl, but even she thought this was strange. None of the animals paid any attention to her or each other. They ran, stampeded across the meadow as fast as their legs would move. Worried, she returned to the van. Barb listened and shrugged. "It's nothing," she said. "If there was a fire, they would have closed the park. Let's have our coffee and go on." Pam wasn't so sure, but took her word for it. Soon they drove on, admiring the breathtaking majesty that are the Tetons. By early afternoon, they entered the visitor center of Yellowstone Park. Right on time, which meant too late to get front row seats, or rather, front row standing spots to watch the show. While the summer intern was giving a play-by-play, Old Faithful did its thing. Well, folks, thank you for coming. If you want to see it again, please come back in. Old Faithful spewed again. Wow, the kid gushed. That's a first. And again, another plume of sulfuric steam erupted. The intern stood staring, mouth open. Everybody felt the rumble. Some may have been more alarmed than others, but they all felt it. Old Faithful was quiet for a few minutes. People dared to exhale in relief. Pam just wanted to grab Barb and run, but she didn't. She stayed with the other tourists and stared, and then another spurt. No, that's not the right word. A geyser. A flume. Oh, hell. Let's just call it what it was. An eruption. The hot, sulfuric steam bubbled up and erupted, overstepping its recognized boundaries, and sprayed over the poor, hapless tourists who were standing on the eastern boardwalk. This time, Pam dragged her friend away. Barb jumped in the driver's seat, while Pam, since that was her job, pushed the old relic off. As soon as Barb was able to turn the engine over, Pam ran and jumped in the passenger seat. People were screaming, running, elbowing, pushing, and stumbling over each other. Some looked like extras in a horror movie. Faces burned, clothing melting to their skin. Only this was real. She didn't want to watch, didn't want to see. But it's like a massive pile-up. You just have to. Pam gasped when she saw the head. Just think of the slobbering, angry head. The poster child of the Jurassic Park movies. The face only a mother could love. That's what reared up out of the boiling water. It had had eons to incubate and mature. And that day, it was ready to claim its heritage. If they'd taken the time, they might have wondered how many of those creatures had laid their eggs in the warm springs of Yellowstone. How many eggs had survived the long winter that followed the meteor impact? The one that extinguished this one's mommy and daddy. They didn't have to ask or wonder, because just as Barb was able to back up without running over anyone, another one crawled out. This one had wings, and within minutes took flight, fully grown. Or at least, hopefully, it was full grown. If this was just a baby, it could gown up to be much bigger than a jumbo jet. Much, much bigger. The lake, that famous tourist attraction, that placid aqua blue, edged in yellow circle, was now a churning cauldron with prehistoric critters peeking out before clambering ashore, screeching, howling, and knocking over, crushing anything in their paths. Go, please go, Pam begged. I can't, Barb cried. I want to, but I can't make myself drive over anyone. If you don't, they will. Pam pointed to the creatures that were crawling out of the water. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Barb summed up the situation, though they knew it was time to haul ass. And even then, it might be too late. They sat there in the deceptive safety of Old Orange and stared as one grotesque beast after another crawled out of the boiling water. "Go," Pam whimpered. "Go, please, go, Barb." She nudged, shook, punched, did what she could to make Barb wake up. "Go," she screamed, with a curse and a shudder. Barb put her foot on the gas and jumped forward. "Don't stall, don't stall, don't stall." Pam prayed as she turned backward in her seat and watched the first tree burst spontaneously into flames. "Faster, Barb, faster." Barb was a good driver. That day, she turned into an excellent demolition derby driver. Aggressively, she drove around everybody, forced people into ditches and off the side of the mountain. She prayed, the act of contrition. "O my Lord God, I am heartily sorry for offending thee." All the way into Idaho, they had grumbled the day before, when the gas station in Jack and Hole had gouged them, when the pump claimed to have put 12 gallons into a half-full 10-gallon tank, then charged them the usury price of 42 cents per gallon for the privilege. But at least they had a full tank, and they were going downhill, which in the little old van was a plus, a great plus. Maybe those flying creatures were colorblind and couldn't see orange because cars left and right, front and back of them were picked up and dribbled like basketballs, rolled like marbles, stepped on like empty beer cans. But Barb weaved and bobbed and evaded their games. It didn't take long, just a few millennia, to make it to Shoshone ice caves, where they huddled with hundreds of other refugees, till the National Guard came to tell them that it was safe to leave the cave. Pam and Barb never made it to San Francisco. Old Orange threw a rod the next day, a belly full of apples. Well, explain to me what it was doing on the tree if I wasn't meant to eat it. I had a long, hard day, Adam. If you remember correctly, you were supposed to name all the animals with tails, while I handled the green ones. The next thing I know, you're passed out by the water circle, taking yet another one of your naps. That left me to come up with all those names, and by the time I was done, I was famished. The apple tree is the closest to the water hole, and that's why I picked an apple. It was convenient. I wasn't deliberately trying to disobey the Lord. After an exhausting day, I simply wanted whichever fruit I could get to first. Can you explain to me why God put the forbidden fruit so close to us and made it so red to draw our attention to it, and made it so tasty? Adam, if you could try an apple, you would never be the same. I cannot describe its delectability. You may as well try one now. We've already been cast out. It's not as though he's going to cast us out again. If you ask me, it's unbelievably rude of him to have us name every living creature on earth, put all the acceptable fruit out of reach, and then kick us out of the garden once all the tedious tasks are completed. He didn't even say thank you, not even a card expressing his thanks. I realize cards haven't been invented yet, but if he can create an entire universe in a few days, I think he can figure out a way to show gratitude. Don't you? Oh, stop crying, Adam. This place isn't so bad. Sure, it isn't paradise, but there are some plants with needles sticking out of them, and some lovely dust, and a lot of very interesting rocks. That one looks sharp. Be sure to never pick it up and drop it on anybody's head. Please cover yourself up. I don't know why, but for some reason, I can't stand the sight of you in all your nakedness, Shane. What's that? No, you know I don't listen when he talks. It's so loud and condescending. Do this, do that. Name this, worship me. Stop rolling your eyes at me, Eve, or I'll turn you back into a rib. It's all so boring. If any of it were all that vital to know, he'd write it down on a piece of stone. I suggested that to him once, and he pretended it was a bad recommendation. But secretly, I think he filed it away to use at a later date. The first time I see a rock with a rule on it, I'm going to look up at the sky and say, "Wow, who gave you that idea?" See if I don't. I'm not afraid of him, you know. You might be, but I'm not. I've barely had time to contemplate my own existence, so the threat of having my existence nullified is of no concern to me. Clearly, he doesn't want to get rid of us and start from scratch, or he would have done it already. No, he wants to teach us a lesson. He wants us to wander aimlessly for the remainder of our lives, cloaked in this thing called shame. I shall not. I refuse. I have nothing to be ashamed of, and I will not pretend that I do. A man makes a silly rule, and if the rule is broken, that does not make it any less silly. I don't care what sort of man it is. I don't care if you say God is not simply a man. He sounds like a man. And because he can sound any way he likes, that means he wants to sound like a man. We call him he, don't we? Then he is a man with made-up rules for living that I was never going to obey. I don't care if he hears me. Let him hear me. I am meant to spend the rest of my days surrounded by needle plants, and you, a man with one rib. I am meant to wear rags, because not wearing them makes me feel strange. I am meant to have children, I suppose. Based on how disagreeable I am and how stupid you are, I can't imagine they'll be very endearing children. Once those children are here, I have no idea who they'll have children with, because it'll just be us. I guess that means once we die and our children die, That'll be the end of this nonsensical little experiment. Oh, but at least we named the giraffes first. A question for you, Adam. Since he isn't responding to us, why are we the only ones who can't eat the apples? I specifically saw a loud bird eating an apple the other day. Why weren't all the loud birds cast out of the garden? If a giraffe eats an apple, will it be thrown out of the garden? Why were we the only ones prohibited? Right, the knowledge. We're not meant to know anything. We're just meant to assign names, be fruitful, multiply, and praise Him every chance we get. If we want knowledge, then it's out we go. Well, Adam, I choose to know. I choose to know things. Not just some things, but everything. Why create an entire world and then tell me I'm not allowed to know anything about it? I can't help but feel this was all some kind of test, and I will not be tested. Had I known that He was testing me, I would have eaten every apple on that tree. I would have stared up at Him with the seeds falling out of my mouth, and I would have laughed. For if I am to go into exile, I am not going with an empty stomach. I will go with a belly full of apples. My only regret is that I stopped at one. I will not feel badly about you being punished for something I did either, because I have been punished many times over for you, for your laziness, for your superiority complex, for the way you smell at night when you are pressed up against me. It reeks so that I can barely sleep. Yet I have said nothing, because I have accepted that we are joined forever. You make strange noises in your sleep, but He never punished you for that. I took one bite, and we are damned. Be angry if you like, Adam, but do not expect me to worry myself over your anger. Your anger is your business. I will not make it mine. Last night, before He woke us with our punishment, I had a dream. I had a dream that all of this was submerged in water. Enough water to cover even the tops of the tallest trees. There were more people, lots more. They were running and screaming. Some were already drowned. In the distance, I could see a large boat, but it was too far away. I would never reach it in time. I would die alongside all these strangers. Instead, I lay myself down. I began to float, right up to the surface. I could still hear the wailing and the pleading all around me, but I was not making a sound. I simply laid like that on the surface of the water and let it take me wherever it wanted to go. Blow your head off. Caution. Based on true story. Contains gore. It's all fun and games until you blow your head off. Before the 1960s, before I made this my home, our lovely town was known for stately elm trees canopying the main street north of the river. But a deadly elm tree disease raged through, infecting them all. The ones not killed quickly succumbed to progress, as the street was widened to 4 lanes instead of 2 for the thoroughfare through town. The Men's Garden Club decided to beautify the landscape by planting a few flowers. That project soon turned into lovely, bright pink petunias lining all the main highways in the city. When my dad took a job at the local mental health asylum before he moved the rest of us here, I remember him sending us a postcard showing the streets lined with petunias sweeping under the memorial arch, with the name of the town emblazoned upon it. Another landmark of the town. When our family arrived, that was the first sight I saw of our new home. As the plantings increased, a petition was made to the state, and soon the community of 15,000 was dubbed the Petunia City. In a short time, an annual celebration was created to honor the designation called the Petunia Festival, held around the 4th of July. The festival midway games and rides, along with arts and craft or car shows, bingo, and a beer garden with live bands, attracted huge crowds from all over. It even became renowned enough that a popular game show in the early 70s, The Dating Game, presented a trip to the Petunia Festival as the grand prize to the winning couple. Welcomed as dignitaries, the excited couple became the grand marshals of the parade that year. I'm sure the experience made a lasting impression on them. The party always ended with a spectacular fireworks display, locally provided by a certified trained family who volunteered their services. In my teenage years, in a town without a lot to do other than cruising Galena Avenue from Peoria Avenue to the south to Lowell Park Road to the north, back and forth, not counting stopping to sit at the courthouse corner to wave at other cruisers. The 4th of July Petunia Festival was the highlight of the summer. Lots of fun and games. Walking the midway hand in hand with someone special. Hawkers trying to get him to win you a prize. Stealing a kiss on top of the Ferris wheel. Eating elephant ears and corn dogs. Feeling nauseous after the spinning rides. Participating in the talent contest. Dancing to the music. Watching the marching bands compete. In my very young motherhood years, it was a struggle to get all my children downtown, at least for the fireworks. This particular year stands out in my memory. My husband was a police officer on a small police force, overstressed as the population exploded on those few days. He was not available to help much with the family. We may have taken the little ones to Kids' Day for a short time to ride the kiddie rides. The carnival company often comped the force a few free coupons, and I may have gotten my younger sister to walk the few blocks from my parents' house to the parade route alongside me with the stroller and the other two in tow. What little ones don't love a parade? But for the fireworks, I was on my own. Anyway, I don't remember planning to go with anyone else. My high school sweetheart husband and I had 4 kids in 5 years back in the early 70s. I believe their ages at the time must have been 5, 4, 2, and I was expecting my bicentennial baby. Exactly why I thought it was even necessary to attend those sparklers on my own with all those babes. In my condition, I'll never know. The festival is held on the high school grounds along the river. A lovely setting for the fireworks, reflecting over the river. Trouble is, there aren't any parking lots close by, which means street parking wherever and however close you can get. The viewing is great if you can get to standing room only on the bridge. Otherwise, it is, well, up in the air. Hard to tell until the blossoms start exactly where you can see them from, due to trees blocking most displays. Over the years, one thinks they have it figured out. Then the organizers suddenly decide to change the venue. Starting point. I cannot tell you how many different viewing spots we have selected or rejected. Anyway, back to my waddling all over town stroller and 2 cranky, tired toddlers in tow. Nice grassy spot at end of bridge, big enough for blanket and maybe a shot at seeing something. Hope the noise isn't too scary for my tots. For some reason, I am remembering when I was little, I never wanted to get too close, for fear a spark might land on me. Anytime I saw someone in a wheelchair, I wondered if that is what happened to them. Hello, Mary. So nice to see you. My musing was interrupted by a somewhat familiar voice. Oh, great. My old boyfriend. Wouldn't you know, haven't seen him for years. And he finds me looking oh so fine. Hi, Joe. Great to see you too. You remember Maureen, right? Her family moved into the old Victorian farmhouse you used to live in. We got married. We are expecting our first baby. Looks like you have another on the way. Are all of these yours? Can never have too many. Congratulations to both of you. They have a way of changing your life, but in a good way. Well, enjoy the show, and best of luck to you, and to you, too. The bombs, booms have started, thank goodness. My little troop actually were enjoying the action, even with all the noise and commotion around us. Seemed it was ramping up. Then suddenly, it all went silent. There was an extremely long pause, way longer than I ever remember between starbursts. The crowd noticed and seemed to get fidgety and restless. That display was far shorter than usual, and there was no grand finale when they send up multiples at one time. Were they that short on funds this year? Sometimes they would send out donation seekers to pay for next year's display. No one had been around to our corner yet, and the time dragged on and on. Suddenly, you could hear the wails of ambulances. Oh no! Something bad must have happened. They are headed to the area the fireworks are detonated. That is not good. Not good at all. There was mumbling among the crowd. It was obvious the show was over for the night, and people started drifting away, scratching their heads and wondering why. I gathered my crew, and we started our trek back to our vehicle. My husband knew, and it wasn't good. The young man in charge of lighting off the display had a problem with one tube. No one present actually saw the moment it happened, but he must have been leaning over the faulty tube, looking for the problem, when it exploded in his face, decapitating him. All the witnesses could immediately see was him engulfed in smoke. I didn't know it at the time, but this man lived in our neighborhood. His 2 children went to school with my children. His widow never did remarry and passed away a few years ago. She was a very strong woman to survive what she did and raise her children on her own. The tragedy was also devastating to the Petunia Festival. The Paul pulled the fireworks off the agenda for years afterwards. The event will turn 60 years old this summer. Yes, it is all fun and games until someone blows his head off. Jingles. I moved the knife quickly, slicing with apt purpose. The bell of the cat's collar fell to the floor. Jingle, jingle. This was the 3rd time I've done this since we first got this cat. I just can't stand the jingling of the collar, and I wanted it to look like the cat had somehow clawed it off, or had rubbed it against something outside, causing it to scrape off. Hopefully, my family will stop insisting that the cat have a bell on her collar after realizing she's just going to keep losing it. Nothing against the cat, of course. Each time I cut that bell off of her collar, she just looks up at me curiously, possibly even thankfully, as if she too can't stand the sound of its jingling. Though I'm certain that the cat and I hate the sound of small jingling bells for 2 very different reasons. My wife, our 3 kids, and I recently moved to my old hometown. I was eager to leave this place as soon as I turned 18, and I couldn't explain to my wife why I didn't want to move back. The same reason why I can't explain to her why I hate the sound of jingling. I was just a kid. One summer here, when I was 12, my friends and I were hanging out on Main Street. "I want strawberry," the little kid exclaimed. They were probably 6 or 7, and they bounced excitedly up and down with a shining grin from one ear to the other, their hands raised up, one clenched around a handful of change. They were smiling adoringly up at the clown, who was dancing in front of an ice cream truck. Turning to the little boy with a smirk and a wink, the clown sang, "For $1, 1 strawberry. I've prepared it for you." Especially, the clown was tall and slender. The makeup around his face was white with dark pink triangles around his mouth as well as his eyes, which were both wide and kind. He wore a large sky blue drape over a striped unitard with different shades of gold and purple with bright red accents. He wore a thick belt around his waist. At points around this belt, as well, from threads of the blue drape, hung small, brass and shiny bells, which rang a chorus of jingling with every movement, and sang a nameless tune whenever he danced. And how this clown loved to dance. "Mr. Jingles! Mr. Jingles!" another kid cried. "Can I have an ice cream sandwich?" The clown, Mr. Jingles, widened his eyes as he looked down at her. He took a deep breath as his smile grew and said, "You're the first today to say my name. This one is for free." He gave her a free ice cream sandwich and did another dance as his feet kicked out, revealing 2 more jingling bells, each one attached to the tip of each of his curled shoes. He did little magic tricks with his hands, and all the children around him laughed and cheered. Some even tried mimicking his dance around him. My friends and I sat on our bikes at a distance, watching the laughable spectacle. "I betcha he diddles kids," Richie said with a snort. "Nah," Brady retorted. "My mom says he's retarded. He probably doesn't even know what to do with his junk." We all laughed at that. I scoffed, saying, "Whatever his problem is, he's fucking creepy." "Ain't that the truth?" Levi said. "I can't be the only one who wants to do something about this guy." Each one of us turned to look at Levi. We didn't really have a leader, but if there was ever a title holder for lead troublemaker, it was Levi. We knew he had something brewing in his mind ever since he first saw Mr. Jingles, and I was eager to stick it to that clown. "What you thinkin'?" I asked, a mischievously wide smile growing on my face. "Simple," Levi said coldly. "We fuck with the clown until he leaves, and we make sure he stays gone." I had the simple job of distracting the clown. I thought this was the dumbest role placement in the history of pranks, seeing as I was never much of an actor. So when I walked up to Mr. Jingles, I just did what first came to my mind and started asking questions. "Hey, clown, what flavors you got?" Mr. Jingles whirled in my direction. The quickness of that sudden movement and my proximity to him, I realized I was much more scared of this clown than I had initially thought I ever could be. "Little kiddo," Mr. Jingles exclaimed, "I've got flavors to match the rainbow." He kicked a leg out in a small dance maneuver. "I've got sweets to make your hair grow." He laughed. "I've got strawberry and chocolate, and long as you've got your wallet, I've got vanilla and mint, with a flashy green tint. There's pistachio and Neapolitan, but try not to get it on your chin." He laughed and chuckled, and that innocent sound within it made me start to think that maybe he didn't deserve to get ran out of town. I couldn't explain it, but he soothed me. All the fear and enmity I felt towards the clown seemed so unjustified now. But it was too late. Richie and Brady started banging against the hood of the ice cream truck while making guttural monkey noises. Mr. Jingles turned, his wide smile melting away in a thin line of confusion. He walked over to my friends, saying, "Heyo, kiddos, how about, and was cut off when the truck's engine started. The clown's head turned, and his mouth opened to a wide O of shock as he looked through the windshield. Levi was in the driver's seat and had turned on the truck. He started to run and shouted, "Oh no, kiddo, Mr. Jingles doesn't think," and was interrupted again when Richie pushed the clown over Brady, who was knelt behind him. The two ran away laughing. I was about to run too, and that's when I realized that Levi had more planned for what was meant to be a spread-out string of pranks on Mr. Jingles. As the clown gasped on the pavement, Levi revved the engine and then put the car in drive. He dove out of the side of the truck and sprinted down the block, faster than I'd ever seen him run before. I turned back, just in time to watch as Mr. Jingles' ice cream truck ran over his midsection. This caused the vehicle to swerve, forcing the rear tires to crush the clown's face. The body of the clown convulsed and spazzed. A monstrous ringing of disturbed jingling from the bells overlaid the tones of crushing bones, and a sound like that of a tossed watermelon. I was motionless and numb in indescribable horror as the vehicle rolled softly away, and I looked at the smeared remains of what used to be a human face. Blood gushed spastically out of a gaping maw that was once the mouth of Mr. Jingles, and more of it oozed out of his ears and coagulated in the ruffled tangles of his dyed pink hair. I stepped back, slowly at first, then turned and ran in the same direction as my friends. We were never named for that crime, though I knew my dad had his suspicions that we had something to do with it. It wouldn't be for a few years later that I wished we had come clean. After all, it was just supposed to be a prank. I don't think Richie and Brady thought Levi would do something like that, and I certainly didn't. I think I was just scared of what Levi would do if he ever found out I ratted him out. So I stayed silent. Now that I'm back here, all these years later, I stood outside our house in the dead of night with my cat and her recently defaced collar at my feet. And I wondered if the mysterious death of Mr. Jingles is still talked about, and if anyone ever thought of any leads. I wondered why it was so difficult to get in touch with Richie or Brady or their families. Maybe I would try to get in touch with Levi, but part of me doesn't want to see the man he grew up to be. A thick fog was creeping down the street. I watched as it grew, frothing up my driveway. I began to wonder if the reason why I couldn't get a hold of my friends was more simple and yet more outlandish than anything more feasible than moving away. The fog had reached my feet, and the cat meowed frightfully, and with a hiss ran somewhere behind the house. But here I stood, watching the wall of unnaturally decisive fog move towards and envelop me. I stood here, waiting for what I knew I had been due for some time. I know it wouldn't matter if I tried to run from it or not, because I'm here in this town, and the consequences of my part in a joke gone wrong are here to greet me. Through the thick fog, I can hear the distorted sound of an ice cream truck's song approaching, and through the fainted beat can be made out the cacophonous ringing, as if some pair of jingling bells attached to two slippered feet. Jingle, jingle, he's right behind you. We'd go out around one, climbing through bedroom windows. We'd try to land softly on bushes and backyard lawns. Some of us went barefoot. Some hid a spare pair of sneakers under porches or tucked under tarps used for covering patio furniture. Some of us just liked being barefoot. It made us feel as though we'd have the strength that comes from mimicking the uncivilized. Some of us would play the whole game with no shoes. No shoes, no shirts. One of us liked to play the game in only his boxer shorts. He would dare anyone to mention his near nakedness. I'm not gay for running around the woods in my underwear. You're all gay for looking at me in my underwear. This is teenage logic. Everything is a chess match where both players have only recently discovered how to play Monopoly. Board games were daytime affairs. We would play them by the above-ground pools and in basements while our parents were at work. We were old enough to be home alone, provided we memorized the phone numbers of all the retired neighbors who could, theoretically, get to us quickly in the event of an emergency. Practically speaking, 70-year-old Mrs. Hasher would not have been able to help any of us had a deranged murderer targeted us the way they did in the cable movies we weren't supposed to watch. But our parents told themselves stories the same way we did. Stories about safety. Stories about good neighborhoods. Stories about how much a locked door could accomplish. Years ago, a girl had been abducted from her home on our street. But the rumor was she opened the door when a stranger knocked. Our parents didn't say it, but they secretly believed that meant she deserved to be kidnapped. I mean, if your kid is dumb enough to open up the door for just anybody, they told themselves that we, their children, were smarter than that. Smarter than that girl. We were not smarter. We were, in fact, a lot dumber than her. Of course, we didn't know that. We thought we were geniuses. Genius, warrior, punks with wisdom and ferocity, and all before our 15th birthday. We believed people were jealous of us. but we didn't know who these people might be. We believed that everyone at school had gone to at least second base, and we were ashamed to have never seen a naked girl in real life. We laughed at the word condom, but we believed, given the opportunity, that we would be intrinsically fantastic at lovemaking. At school, we had posters in our locker of Sarah Michelle Gellar and Jennifer Love Hewitt, and those of us who had gone to first base had that one poster of Cameron Diaz that would have gotten us suspended if a teacher saw it. We'd gather at each other's lockers and discuss the arrangements for the game that night. We'd agree on a spot in the woods. Some of us liked meeting at the tree that had been split in half by lighting. Some liked the rock formation that resembled an old man kneeling with his head down. Once the location was agreed upon, we'd argue about the time. Some of us wanted to meet at midnight on the dot. We didn't realize that we were in love with the poetry of it, because we swore we hated poetry based on what our teachers had us read. Some wanted to do it later, much later. Some wanted to meet at 3 or 4 so that the game would last until dawn. Tomorrow's Saturday. We don't have school. What's the problem? The problem was that some of our parents got up around dawn. Some of our mothers would have a heart attack if they woke up and found our beds empty. Some of us didn't want to worry our parents. Some of our fathers used a belt if we misbehaved. Some of us cared about our parents too much to let them know what their children were up to at night. Some of us feared our parents more than we feared anything in the woods. Some of us feared nothing. Some of us loved the idea of being gone when our parents woke up, making them think that we'd escaped, that we were on a runway train somewhere, moving further and further away from them. Some of us liked the feeling of the belt on our skin because it solidified the hate we felt for the people we were meant to love the hardest. We'd usually meet a little after 1. If it was warm out, we'd meet by the lake where the summer camp used to be until it went out of business. The cabins were still there, and the picnic tables, and the signs that said mess hall and nurse's office. The paint on the signs was fading. Vines were growing over the cabin windows. We didn't explore the camp at night. Even the bravest among us weren't that fearless. We'd seen at least one horror movie that took place at a camp. And we didn't want to be chased by a man with a mask. We only wanted to play a game. In our game, if you followed the rules, you didn't get hurt. Nothing bad happened. If you broke the rules, the game was over for you. But that was it. No injuries, no harm. It was all about stamina, sustaining yourself throughout the night. There wasn't really any loss. There wasn't even a real way to win. Bragging rights were all we had to play for. And yet, they seemed more valuable than the $100 bills our fathers would leave out on the kitchen counter as though tempting us to steal. Some of us did steal. Some of us felt the belt. Some of us liked it, but we'd never say who. We started by the lake, and we faced off against each other, eye to eye with another boy standing a foot away from you. That was how it began. We would face each other, take a deep breath, and say, "He's right behind you." One of us would say it, the other would listen. Then the other person would say it, "He's right behind you," and we would escalate the intensity. The rule was that you could not say anything other than those 4 words, but you could say them however you liked. We could shout them at each other. We could whisper them. Those of us who were more strategic knew that volume wasn't enough. It was about having an action, an objective. It was important to keep a verb in mind: beg, cajole, beseech, caution, plead, convince, convince, convince. He's right behind you. It didn't matter that we played this game several times a week for 2 years. It didn't matter that we knew that nobody was behind us. Inevitably, someone would get spooked. One of us would run home. That first hint of terror was contagious. Soon, more of us would be retreating back to our homes. It was rare that more than 3 or 4 of us would be left by the end of the night. If your partner ran away, you would find someone else who had also lost their partner, and you would face off against them, speaking the 4 words. If you were the only one without a partner, you stood silently and waited for someone to leave. Like most boys our age, we had no respect for anything we were meant to respect, and the utmost respect for imaginary things and made-up scenarios, school and church and authority and death were all laughable to us. But this game that we had created out of nothing, this was something to be taken seriously. None of us could remember who started it. Maybe an older boy who had since graduated from childishly sneaking out of his room at night. Maybe we all put it together like a story composed of hormones and dirty sweat. Maybe it didn't matter. All that mattered was keeping it alive for as long as we could. We never spoke of the game outside of planning it between classes at our lockers. We never talked about who was good at it or bad at it. We never talked about who stayed the longest or who left first. We just played. We played, and we never planned to stop playing. One night, one of us was staring at his partner when he saw the other boy's eyes look slightly to the left. This was against the rules. You only looked at your partner. You used the 4 words to scare them, if you could. You didn't involve physicality, not even a slight shift in focus. The other boy began to shake his head. This was wrong. This was against the rules. None of us knew what to do if someone broke the rules, because nobody had ever broken the rules. There were no referees, and even if there were, it wouldn't have mattered now, because there were only 2 boys left on that night. The other boy appeared to almost choke. He coughed out the words, "He's right behind you." The other boy looked as though he was going to raise an arm, raise a hand, point to something. Instead, he ran off. The other boy wasn't supposed to run off. You were supposed to wait until the other person said the 4 words. You were supposed to give them a chance to scare you back. One of us stood there that night, all alone, and felt an immense pride extending down his shoulders and off into the ground below his feet. He was the only one left. A laugh barked past his lips. It was a nervous laugh, but he didn't know where the nerves were coming from, and he wondered if he could get home before his father banged on his door to wake him up for school. If not, it would be the belt. But did that mean anything? He was the last one of us still standing there in the woods. "He's right behind me." He didn't know why he said it. It wasn't true. There was nobody behind him. Every sound was natural. Every presence an imagined one. Every instinct to flee was his paranoia trying to torment him now that all his fellow competitors were gone. He would stand in the woods for as long as he liked. He would enjoy this moment. Despite winning nothing, he would tell himself he was a winner. He was no longer one of us. He was someone else. "He's right behind me." But the game was over. There was nobody left to scare. Blood rain. It wasn't the red aliens that were the problem. It was the voodoo high priests that caused all the mischief. Monkey hands, parrot beaks, and baboon skulls were one thing. But when the blood rains came, all of the usual cons kicked into high gear. The mantis-like, spindly red alien surveyed my vegetables with an air of fascination. He stopped on the okra, holding up a stalk and studying it. He was dressed in ripped, whitewashed jeans and a Blink 182 t-shirt. But behind his disguise was a standard silver spandex jumpsuit, like they all wore when they came into town to creep around. Whatever else you could say about the red aliens, they were creepers by nature, with no sense of boundaries. I just wanted him to move along. I clenched a final notice of foreclosure auction in my hand, as if taking out my anger on the paper would save the family ranch. Yahya Gaban took the deed to our ranch in foreclosure. Yahya was a cattle herder, but before that, he had been a TAF general and still had pull with the government. Yahya was hard, implacable, unyielding, a real monster. Yahya once shot and killed a 6-year-old boy playing in his grazing pastures while the child begged for his life. The laws allowed one to protect their land from intruders. When asked why he'd done it, Yahya had said, "The signs on the perimeter say, 'Stay out, trespassers shot on sight.' Wouldn't mean nothing if I didn't follow through." The Police Nacional who had questioned him said, "Yahya, The kid was illiterate. Guess he should have paid more attention in school, Yahya had said. The way Yahya looked at it was when he set his eye on what's yours, it was his if he could find a way to take it from you. Uncle Kofi was missing an eye from turning the other cheek in a fight as a boy. But the rock in the other kid's hand had landed just right and shot the eyeball clean out. Uncle Kofi was a pacifist who wouldn't even swat a mosquito. So this was no contest. I had told Uncle Kofi we should just give up the ranch. We couldn't afford it. But Uncle Kofi was superstitious. He believed that fate could be wooed. A few weeks earlier, I had gone with Uncle Kofi to the Ako Desawa fetish market and met with Guédenon Benoit, the voodoo man. We entered his office, as he called it, which was a hut with a square-framed doorway lined with human skulls that looked like a no-frills mine shaft leading into a catacomb. The standing air inside was stiff, musky, and moist. The walls of the inner chamber were filled with the dried heads of dogs, monkeys, birds, naxos, and every imaginable living thing you could think of. You could almost hear the animal sounds echo from the clay walls. Uncle Kofi gasped at the abundance of spirits filling this hovel. I did not share his sense of wonder. I joked to myself, internally, that this was the great roadkill emporium of Lomé. Here it is, Guédenon said, his rounded jowl stubbled with patches of white, and his bald head shining from the torchlight. The basket was filled with little dried chameleons, with their helmet-shaped heads adorned with horns and bony lumps, like modern-day dinosaurs. It smelled like furry jerky, dried in the humid, tropical breeze. Yes, here we are. After putting a handful of chameleons in a basket, Guédenon gathered a handful of dried parrots, each withered down to the size of a famished mouse. Now, to change your luck, you will grind up the chameleon and grind up the parrot. Guédenon depicted the grinding while he spoke, taking up a pewter bowl and mallet to make the demonstration, the torchlight reflecting off his bald forehead. You will mix this with soap and bathe yourself in it. Do this 2 times a day. 3 days, not a day more, not a day less. Uncle Kofi tapped Guédenon on the shoulder while he looked for some other nonsense to sell us. Did you hear about the Dulaba? You mean about the strangers whose minds could not be read? They were talking about these totems at the village gates by our farm that look like men sitting cross-legged, with arms extruded and heads of black tar, with seashells for eyes. The guardians, or Dulaba, are supposed to be able to scan the minds of foreigners entering the village to discern if they have ill intent. I heard that the Westerners, the lanky ones, who appeared before the blood rains, I heard that none of the priests could discern their purpose from the Duleba. Uncle Coffee said. It is true, Guédanon told him. I wanted to scream. They are red aliens, you moron. No one knows what they want. But I couldn't say anything, or I'd be committed. I was the only one who could see them ever since I was a child. I had been hiking on Mont Agu, exploring its ridges, when I saw a light in the mist and stumbled upon their cliffside observatory. Normally, it was cloaked, but something about the vapors in the mist had screwed with the effect, did something to the light. When I walked into what looked like a temple from the outside, I saw a screen wrapping around the length of the chamber in a semicircle. Large, spindly red, mantis-like creatures with 4 legs on their hind parts were engrossed in the readings and images on their screens, tapping away with long, bony fingers on the consoles in front of them. One of them turned its hooded eyes and triangular face in my direction and screamed. The pincers on the sides of its mouth flaring in fright. A group of them rushed toward me. I shielded my face, but they were not violent. That was when they gave me the scarab beetle amulet that allowed me to recognize them despite their cloaking tech, and explained to me about the bright blue marble we inhabit. They said, "It is not that Earth is special. There are plenty of habitable worlds with natural wonders. It is the size of the moon that counts. Our mission is to scan the cosmos to find other worlds that can host life. Other worlds with just the right size of moon." I had pressed the aliens as to why this was the case, and they had elaborated and explained everything in great detail. But I couldn't understand much of it. The only worlds that host life are those worlds with a moon that is just the right size to create a total solar eclipse, one of the red aliens said. And once that sacred syzygy goes out of balance or is disrupted, life moves on. I had asked why they didn't just place moons around any planets with the right characteristics. He said, "There is a directive against playing God. Each civilization rises and falls on its own merits. When the time comes, a people either mature and venture out from their home or are snuffed out." It sounded dramatic back then, but these days, I don't know that a fair judge would deem us worthy of salvation, least of all us Togolese, who were forever finding reasons to kill and brutalize one another. The red aliens come from a sad, timeless dimension, much like Togo. On their world, there are tiny microbes in the soil that cover everything in shades of red. The microbes are in the air, the soil, the water, and can lay dormant for centuries, which is what is causing the blood rains. So much of this stuff is filtered out of the observatory that when they are here, They are literally pumping red dye into the clouds, day in and day out. In Togo, the next calamity is always waiting right around the corner, and word travels fast in Lomé. To stir people into a panic only takes the smallest of rumors. Strange lights flashing around Mont Agu. Tall, spindly men in strange clothing loitering in the market. Match that up with omens like blood rain and a lunar eclipse, and the entire populace was stewing with anxiety and murmuring up a storm. Especially Uncle Coffee. It was great for the priests. But you know what terror and intrigue is meant for? Selling vegetables and fattening cows, and for all of the divination and soothsaying about how the bloodshed of decades gone by would be punished unless the land was purified. How those cries reaching to heaven would compel the Almighty to blot out the sun. Despite all of that, all this voodoo accomplished was to tear into old wounds and inspire fresh political violence. Everyone in the suburban villages and the slums blamed someone for their troubles and sought protection or aid from the priests. The radicals blamed the Union Party and the rich Kabylie tribe for subjugating the masses and censoring speech. For this and for that, and prayed for their downfall. The Union Party blamed the radicals for deceiving the public with lies and doubled down on censorship. And the disputes were much the same in the suburbs. Each side thought the other evil. Each side saw the issue as one-sided. Good versus evil. In a way, each side was right, and each side was wrong. And our people, splintered in 1,000 factions, with no unifying principle, pointed fingers at each other, much the same as our governors did, and old feuds spilled out into bloodshed. And Yahya had sent a man to tell Uncle Kofi he'd be coming to the ranch the next day, and it was time we cleared out. I gripped the crumpled notice in a tight fist and looked up at the stranger. The red alien at my vegetable stall in the Lomé Grand Market grabbed one of my best okra plants and gave it a once-over, not knowing I could see through his disguise. "How much for one of these?" he asked in French. "Why are you here?" "I am looking for vegetables to thicken a stew." "Cut the shit," I said. "We've been having blood rain for the past 2 months." The red alien laughed heartily. "It's just from dust kicked up into the atmosphere from a dust storm. For 2 months? Dust doesn't take 2 months to settle. Maybe it is some kind of algae, like a red tide. It stained all my white clothes. It burned the leaves off the trees. People are using it to tattoo skin." "What do you think it is?" "I know what it is. Red alien bugs. What else?" His buggy eyes bulged, and his forehead furrowed. Then he settled into realization. "You're her. You're Dora Igwe. Dora the Explorer. The one who found us in the flesh. Do you want to come watch the eclipse with us?" "Why would I do that?" It is an important celestial event. No disrespect. But it gets dark once a day. It's called night. I really don't get the novelty. You wouldn't, would you? I guess it's like the suddenness of the enveloping darkness. It is metaphorical. Sometimes, you know, it is later than you think. What's that supposed to mean? You know, your people believe that war and bloodshed are like a virus, that it infects even the sun and the moon. And when the sun and moon get to quarreling, that brings about the eclipse, a final warning to change your ways. Those are just Batamaliba folk stories. They say the first mothers, Puka Puka and Kuyekok, told the villagers that the darkening of the sun was a warning to make amends for old feuds and live in peace, and the light will return. You are a space-faring team of scientific explorers. You know this is an astrological, mathematical event. It has nothing to do with violence. Don't be so sure, child. There is much you do not understand. As the red alien turned and walked up the long, dusty road to the forest switchbacks, he turned and said, "Come watch with us, if you want." In the observatory, we waited for the eclipse. The red aliens were frantic. The one from earlier, who I'd nicknamed Tommy, took the controls and lifted the ship to a hover. "We've got to find a better vantage point," he said, as the ship floated through the Tongolese countryside outside Lomé. I could feel the eerie shadow chasing us down. The sky was full of fast-moving clouds, and a low mist hung to the valley floor, slinking down the mountain slopes and resting on the fields. The ship came to rest in Yahia's grazing lands, and the moon obstructed the sun. The red aliens gasped with a sound like the whistling of the wind. Like I said, though, I'm not superstitious. The whole thing seemed a bit overblown to me, but there it was, the total eclipse. A black orb with the faintest halo of red, set against a black, overcast, and moonless sky. Tommy turned to another red alien, who I'd known for years, and had nicknamed Freddy, and said, "The satellite has started moving too close. It is only a matter of time now. Isn't everything?" Freddy asked. "Hey, what is he talking about?" I asked. "Don't you worry, child," Freddy said. "When the time has come, it will all happen very quickly. She doesn't know we are here for the moon," Tommy blurted out. "It is just the right size for the colony in HD 1106-7, Freddy said. Freddy made a gesture to shush him. But it was too late. I had heard it. So, for all our worries about our earthly disputes, this was what the end of the world looked like. At least I wouldn't end up being homeless. That had been the thought I'd been obsessing over for days. I went to look out the back window, and it was just like Freddy had said. It was coming quickly. Yahya was in the cab, rolling the excavator toward the ship, and the dipper and bucket were swinging down and about to crash through the ceiling. The sound was deafening. Shards of metal and other materials rained down. Wires and diodes and mechanical pieces pelted our heads and the ground. The red aliens shrieked. Tommy was holding Freddy like a kid in a theater, caught with an unexpected jump scare. I ran out in the fields, under the dark, moonless sky. Yahya raised the bucket over and over, caving in the roof of the ship and tearing huge chunks of the fuselage out into his fields. Yahya was smoking a Cuban cigar, and I could hear him yelling, "Serves you right, trespassers." I guess a similar thing would happen soon to our ranch house, in the family for 5 generations. Maybe the barn, too. That seemed to be the way of things, to tear down the old to make way for the new. Especially here in Togo, Tommy made it out of the ship, only to be met by the blast of a shotgun. "Got one," Yahya shouted. I just watched, frozen. The blast tore Tommy's torso nearly in half, felling him. The blood poured and oozed out onto the dark fields. The pool of blood was red, just like ours. I guess, however different we are on the outside, maybe all living things bleed red. We are a thirsty bunch, the living hungering after that red nectar, to stir it, to shed it, to pool it, and collect it. Then Yahya turned to me and pointed the shotgun at my face. "Run," he said. "Get off my land." And I ran through the pitch-dark fields in the cool of the eclipse, crying as I waited for a gunshot that never came. Yahya yelled after me, "Enjoy your home while you can. I'll be coming for it." And he laughed, a bellowing stomach laugh, an eerie, chortling, bone-chilling laugh. Inevitable, unquenchable, soulless. And as I ran, tripping on rocks, legs cut by tall grasses, I saw sirens in the night. At least 12 SUVs. The Gendarmerie Nationales, the National Guard. They were coming for Yahya, alerted by the gunshots and the carnage. A tall, friendly Fed with a pock-marked face jumped out of one of the vehicles and tried to grab me. "It's okay now. We've got this," he said. But I wrestled away from him as I made it to the clearing and the dirt road. I dared a glance back at the haloed specter of the eclipse. I hoped Uncle Kofi would be back at the kitchen table, waiting for me with some vegetable soup, blissfully impervious to the warring entities ravaging our lands. The blood rains fell in a torrent, coating the dirt road in a river of blood. I guess not all monsters are created equal. Ours take life without reason or remorse, just because they can. A sliver of light emerged from the fading eclipse as I reached the drive to the ranch house, lighting my path, warming the shadows. Uncle Coffee was at the door, the smell of the fetish soap on his skin. "Our luck is changing," he said. The selfie of Dorian Gray. Picture this. Dorian Gray, 25, gorgeous bachelor of the Brighton, gay scene handsome, F. Queen, slay. Picture his blazing blue eyes set above aquiline nose and a rosebud pout of a mouth. Cheeks ready to blush under the lick of glitter from a makeup brush. Deep gold locks styled to perfection. Forehead wide and empty as a summer sky. Beauty not brains image as everything skin deep. Picture this. Dorian perched on the sleek leather and chrome of a bar stool in the poison ivy. Margarita in one hand and foam in the other. Twin totems of the god of the gay bar. Picture his thumb hitting the camera app. Muscle memory leads him there always, and hovering now over the shutter button. Picture him pausing for a fragment of time to check the image on the phone screen. It is, as always, empty perfection. Click. There it is. The button is pressed, the shutter closes, the selfie is taken, and all around him, life continues in the poison ivy. The disco ball spins. Lady Gaga roars through over-amplified speakers. A drag queen at the bar wipes lipstick and white wine from a red twist of a mouth. But for Dorian Gray, life has stopped. Here, now, in this moment, the moment the selfie was taken. Live in the moment. Look good, feel good. Self-love. Because, as he licks the salt rim of his margarita glass from perfectly glossed lips, Dorian realizes that he has taken the best selfie ever. What is it about this selfie that makes it so exquisite? Is it the background of dancers blurring to hot whirls of color? Is it the shards of light from the disco ball falling like a shower of diamonds across the face? No, it is the face itself, caught at the very moment of its blooming, like a young rose, beautiful. Dorian knows, the instant he sees the selfie, that there, right there in front of him, swimming in a million pixels, is the great truth he searched for his whole life. Beauty. What would you like? The barman asks, plucking an olive from a discarded martini glass and popping it into his lipsticked mouth. I'd like, says Dorian. I'd like it if this selfie aged instead of me. You what? The barman hollers over Gaga's jagged vocals. I'd like another margarita, Dorian says. But Dorian's wish came true. Picture this. Years later, Dorian is flicking through his phone when up pops the selfie. Throwback. Memories. 10-year challenge. Picture Dorian, 35, and still on the cusp of blooming like a young rose, locking eyes with the image of his 25-year-old self, but not the image as he left it 10 years previously. No. For etched into the selfie, right there in front of him, are the tide lines of age, wrinkles beginning to show on the forehead, the skin wilting around the aquiline nose, twin creases either side of the rosebud pout of a mouth. Dorian sees, too, a certain sneer, a certain curl of the lip, not present in the original Selfie, hashtag bitch face, hashtag mean girl, slash judging you. Was it the many times he'd put others down on the basis of their looks? The many ugly comments he'd made on another's ugliness that had written that sneer into the selfie? Did the curl of the lip evidence a life lived in selfishness, selfie stick in hand, and judgment in mind? Dorian swipes off the selfie, a cold sweat of horror breaking out on his preternaturally youthful brow. He tries putting a softening filter on the selfie, hoping to erase those harsh lines. But the app glitches and increases the contrast on the image, only etching those lines deeper into brow and cheek. Like a narcissus staring into troubled waters, Dorian recoils in disgust from the sight of his own image. Oh, not feeling cute. Bad hair day. He clicks off the app, fingers barely shaking, and runs to the bathroom. Looking into the perfect circle of the stylish chrome-rimmed mirror, home decor hasher, interior design, trendsetter, Dorian scours his face for wrinkles, blemishes, imperfections. But he finds, as always, the same strange youth, the same pure beauty that is synonymous with his reputation in gay bars, from the pier to the marina. Hands clammy on the cold porcelain of the sink, Dorian exhales and spits from his perfect mouth the salivation that warns him he will vomit. Leaning over the toilet, he pukes onto the perfect white porcelain. Loops of saliva falling from his face like hot tears of shame and disgrace. Dorian commits himself to a life of velvety pleasures and empty aesthetics. He progresses his modeling career at the London fashion shows. Strike, oppose, model life, catwalk. In his spare time, he buys designer handbags in the lanes and showcases his latest outfits in the bars of Kemptown. At night, the selfie haunts his dreams. Mouth twisted in hideous grin, cheek disgraced by defects, brow wrecked by wrinkles, a face defaced by imperfections. The years pass in a blur of nights spent knocking back shots in bulldog cheers down at happy hour. But still, Dorian's face stays young. He courts a beautiful drag queen, name of Sybil, dreams of the lavish wedding they'll have. In bars, they sip sex on the beach together and rate the other twinks on their looks in loud whispers. Roast me, 2 out of 10. Fugly. In dark bedrooms with drawn curtains, they smoke Tina with hookers and dropouts. At the nudist beach, they work on their tans, but soon Dorian and Sybil are fighting. Conversation withering to ridicule and cheap digs. Picture this. The couple at 2 a.m. on St. James Street, roaring insults and comebacks at each other with beer-soaked breath, like baying stags. "You're a right bitch," Dorian screams. "A nasty, cheap, tranny whore." He flings his pint glass to the gutter and struts off into the night. Picture this. Dorian is 45, and as his age has increased, so too has his reputation for youthful good looks. He launches his own line of face cream, skin care, anti-aging results. He proposes to Sybil. They break it off. They get back together. They break it off again. The night they call off the engagement for the second time, Dorian sits somber at the dressing table in his bedroom. He stares into the vanity mirror, his face flawless, even in the bright white light of the bare bulbs, searching for flaws, any clue as to why Sybil left him. But he finds, as always, perfection. The selfie haunts his thoughts like an unwelcome ghost. He pulls out his phone and clicks on the photo app. He pulls up the selfie and finds it more hideous than ever. Crow's feet at the corners of the eyes, scoops of black shadow underneath them, a complex network of wrinkles deep cut into the face, and still that hideous, exaggerated sneer, like the face of a horrible puppet. "It's just a selfie," he says. "It doesn't look like me. I cannot look that bad, surely." Reassuring himself, Dorian decides to take action. Why let a selfie ruin your night? Why let a photo curb your self-esteem? Quickly, before he changes his mind, Dorian clicks on the bin icon. A message flashes up on the screen. Delete photo. He pauses for just a fraction of a second, shaking finger hovering over the button, and presses it. Picture this. Sybil, the next day, hungover and contrite and missing her boyfriend, mounting the stairs to Dorian's flat in her stilettos, heel clicks echoing in the otherwise silent stairwell. She knocks on the door. Silence. She fumbles in her rhinestoned handbag for the spare key and lets herself in. Inside the flat, everything is in its usual perfect order. Dorian's designer coats hang in the entranceway. A half-drunk bottle of Chablis sits on the marble worktop, illuminated like a yellow jewel in the beam of a kitchen spotlight. The Dyson tower fan blasts out cool air in the lounge. 2,000 watts, or 700 cubic meters per hour. Ultimate cooling technology. It blasts a jet of cold across Sybil's fish-netted legs, like an icy river or a ghost passing through her. Dorian? Silent still, she checks everywhere, and letting herself into the last room, the bedroom, she finds it empty. She pulls back the bed sheets. Nothing. But seeing the door of the walk-in wardrobe ajar, she opens it to find, picture this, Dorian hanging by his neck from the rail. At first, she doesn't recognize him, for the swollen, purple face of the dead man is ugly, carved with deep wrinkles, pocked with blemishes, the lip curled up in a final expression of disdain. By his side, there lies his phone, safe and sound. Safe and sound. 7:15 a.m. Go downstairs. Phone fully charged. Remove cable. Stare at phone wallpaper. Not familiar. Photo of huge oak in West Park at end of my street, where Rich proposed. Maybe took it yesterday. Maybe not. Not sure. Stare more. Check for messages. Mom, Sarah, Rich. Rich? Not heard from him in ages. Is he okay? Oh, he's replying to me. I didn't message him. I must have. Yes, look. Asked if he had a good weekend. Sent 23:03 yesterday. Was in bed by 10. Must have got up. Come downstairs. Forgotten. Sleepwalking. Again. Getting regular now. See a doctor. Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. Rich is fine. Am I okay? Reply. Short and sweet. Don't encourage the ex from hell. Don't know why I messaged him at all. Ping. It's your move on Words with Friends. What's that? Looks like Scrabble game. Never heard of it. Why is it on my phone? Quick look around it. I have 5 games in play. 5. It's my move in all of them. Didn't drink last night. Uninstall Words with Friends. Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. Coffee. Cinnamon roll. Sofa. Slightly more awake. Check phone again. More from Rich. Why did you get back in touch? Want to meet up? Ignore. Sarah. She says thanks with thumbs up. Thanks for what? Scroll messages. Yes, she can borrow my copy of Catch-22. Still own Catch-22? Thought I lost it ages ago. Scroll more. Told Sarah I found it. Don't remember that. Check bookshelves later. Reply to Mom. Yes, still coming for dinner on Thursday. Thursday? When did we plan that? Never mind. I'm free. I'll go. Add to calendar. Entry for Saturday. What's that? Date with Tom. No details. No memory of this. Message Tom. Hi, are we meeting this Saturday? 8 a.m. now. Ring for doctor's appointment. 32nd in the queue. Sorry, no more appointments today. Please call back 8 a.m. tomorrow. System is enough to make me need a doctor. Whisper. Safe and sound, safe and sound. Bookshelves. No sign of Catch-22. Check 3 times. What's this? Copy of Never Let Me Go lying on top of other books. I never do that. Do I? Don't remember this edition. Cover is blue with picture of cassette tape. Thought mine was orange with girl in green dress. Flick through it. Pages dog-eared. I never do that. Spine cracked. I never do that. Must be mistaken. Phone beeps. Rich. I can see you're reading my messages. Tom replies, Hi, Grace. Yes? Royal Oak, 2 p.m. Saturday. Remember? You okay? I'm worried about you. He's not the only one. Why don't I remember things I should? Phone announces. There's movement at the front door. Letterbox clangs. Amazon delivery. Thanks, I think. Not expecting anything. Rip open cardboard zip. Copy of Catch-22. Green cover. Same edition I lost. Open Amazon app on phone. Ordered book yesterday. Did I? Didn't know Sarah wanted it till now. Or did I? Coincidence? Put phone down. Deep breath. Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. Phone alarm sounds. 9 a.m. Take pills. Yes. Take pills. Go to kitchen. Find clean glass. All glasses are clean. When did I wash up? Tap. Water. Pills. Swallow. Running low. Need to order repeat prescription. Open browser on phone. Doctors is bookmarked. Multiple tabs already open. What are they? First tab. Google seems about right. Second tab. British Association for Counseling and Psychotherapy. Have I been looking for a therapist? Maybe I need one? Psychiatrist, perhaps more useful? Third tab. Royal Oak. I did book a table for Saturday, maybe. Check for confirmation email. Open Gmail. Premium bonds. You have won a prize. Go to Premium Bonds app. App not there. Check all screens. No sign. Must have uninstalled. Why? We'll check for prizes on website later. Message from Rich. Don't open it. Search Gmail for Royal Oak. Booking confirmation. 3 people, 2 p.m. Saturday. 3 people. Me? Tom? Who else? Message Tom. Who are we meeting on Saturday? He's not online. Phone rings. Withheld number. Hello? Man's voice. Is that Grace? I'm responding to the enquiry you made through my website. Are you still looking for a therapist? Did I do that? Hang up. Rings back. Don't answer. Too weird. Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. More coffee. Must order meds. Back to browser. Bookmarks. Medical practice online. Order repeat prescription. Done. Bookmarks. What did I just see? Lingerie site? Wasn't looking at lingerie. Click on link. There are 4 items in your basket. Click on basket. Red peephole bra and matching satin G-string. Pink see-through baby doll. Black crotchless bodysuit. All in my size. None to my taste. Shopping for Tom? Not his thing either. More what Rich would like. Ugh. Empty basket. Delete bookmark. Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. Phone beeps. Tom, I don't know who we're meeting. You said it was a surprise. See messages from last night. Were you drunk? Surprise for me too. Check last night's messages with Tom. 23. Message deleted. 23:08. Message deleted. 23:12. Message deleted. Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. Not drunk. Possibly not fully conscious. Sleep texting? Need stronger pills. Call doctor again tomorrow. Good news needed. Open premium bonds. Website online. Password not recognized. Type again. Slowly. Password not recognized. Type again. Very slowly. You only have one more attempt before your account is locked. Was I drunk last night? No. Worked till 8. Home, showered, changed. Bed by 10. Back to kitchen. Open booze cupboard. 4 ciders and half bottle of Bailey's missing. Sleep drinking? Whisper. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. No hangover. Didn't drink all that. Brought friend home. Who drinks? Bed by 10 makes no sense. Would remember someone else in house. Check spare room anyway. No one there. Bed not slept in. Phone beeps. Rich. I have to look. I miss you. Are you ignoring me? Check all rooms. Front door locked. Back door locked. Spare key. Gone. Message Tom. Have you got my spare key? Phone beeps. Sarah. Hey chick. You okay today? Don't suppose you can send me the pic of that new restaurant we saw last week? I knew I'd forget the name. Ha ha ha. Tom replies. Not this time. Gave it back to you on Friday. Are you okay? Check camera roll for Sarah. Multiple pics of girl asleep in bed. Wait, can't have taken these pics. That's me. Safe and sound. Safe and sound. There were way too many flies for an empty house. Schizophrenia is a bitch. And I don't usually curse when I'm writing. I like the classic style of Stephen Crane and the refined worlds of Oscar Wilde. And I know things have changed a lot since this kind of gentleman went extinct. But still, there is something about correct writing that turns everything into poetry. Even these stories. I continue now. Schizophrenia is a bitch. Medicated or unmedicated. Dealing with not knowing what is real or not can still be challenging day by day. From the happy little bunnies hopping out of an unexistent hole to say hi graciously and brighten your day, to the four-eyed woman whose face was falling rotten into pieces in front of my astonished eyes, while she only wanted to offer my breakfast one autumn morning. Anything can be frightening. I thought I was never going to have the courage to move far from the city, far from the hospitals, from the gentrification, and the everyday influx of strangers. It made me calm to know I could just pop out a card from my pocket that shows my mental condition, and people would help me in the most scary situations. Reality pushed me outside of the city. I found the best house to which I could move. Affordable, 2 stories, old cracking wooden floors, unfinished basement, and a big yard with space to grow your vegetables, your very own lavender plants, with the freedom to sit outside and write while listening to nothing but the chickadees and robins singing. No neighbors, no annoying neighbors, because as much as I liked the activity of the city, living in a 24 floors building could be a tiny bit too noisy sometimes. A 100-year-old house that needed some love. Honestly, for the price I paid, I had all the love in the world to give. I didn't overthink before buying it. I didn't want to get into details, so I put the signature on the paper and bought it as it was. The first night was a nightmare. The mice activity was so high in the basements and between the walls that it looked like they were throwing me a welcoming party. My eyes were wide open, and I kept just thinking, I need a cat. I need a cat. I need to get a cat. I didn't challenge my judgment or how factual the existence of mice in a house this old would be. I could smell the mice, their nests, their filth, their spawns. And if there is something I rarely get in life, it's olfactory illumination, also called phantom smells. I didn't dare tell any of my family members about the nightmare because I had been told many times that moving out of the city was not for everyone. I didn't want to worry my mom. She tried to persuade me to move in with her, inviting me to stay more than once, offering me homemade food, and promising me peace and clean laundry. I spent the night the best I could, turning from one side to the other, trying to get comfortable and used to every noise. I woke up the morning after with a horrible headache when I moved the curtains in the bedroom to let the sunlight in. I saw at least 30 flies, scattered, sunbathing, flapping their wings against one of the windows, and I jumped back to my bed in disgust. I had my phone fully charged and used one of my favorite methods to discover if my mind was playing games or not. I took a picture of the flies. You see, when you have schizophrenia, if you take a picture or make a video at the precise moment that you see the craziest things, you can actually check on your phone if what you are seeing is real. The mind evolved to be tricky and a vile traitor sometimes. Still, it didn't evolve as much as not to be tricked by a cell phone camera. So the hallucination you are having, if it's just a mere creation of the mind, will not appear either in the video or in a picture. The flies were there, way too many for a house that had its windows closed for the past few weeks. There was a family there before. I don't think this was normal, even for a country house. It wasn't even summer. The weather didn't look inviting for flies, and my house was not a warm place for them to live happily in. I opened the 4 curtains individually to reveal the flies blackening each window. I sprayed them and saw them fall one by one. I vacuumed the remains and moved to the bathroom for a relaxing bath. Relaxing was something that I wouldn't do for a while. I opened the faucet, and the bubbling sound of dry pipes came first, letting a little string of water fall that looked horribly yellow. By the time my bathtub was full, all I had was pea-colored water that smelled like sulfur, and it made me lose the last drop of hope I had that morning. I walked downstairs to the basement. I had been in a basement twice in my life, and one of those times was when I had to check the new house with the realtor a few weeks before moving. I wouldn't say I liked basements. The swamp smell, the spiders, the spider webs that were abandoned, meaning the spiders are now somewhere else where we can't see them. The mice, their horrible smell, and the furnace, the root of significant nightmares that come from old stories and many, many horror movies that I wish I hadn't seen. I took a gun with me. I know I shouldn't have had one, but my dad, who didn't know better, advised me to take his gun since being alone in a house can be challenging for a woman. My nearest neighbor was 2 miles away, but so was a police station, so I thought it was an okay idea. This time, I had to use it. It was loaded and ready to shoot some cans outside in case my days turned more boring. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard noises coming from the water well. Something was struggling to get out. The well was a little bit deep, but still, anyone my size could have gotten out of there. I thought, well, great. Now I will have to shut a wild animal, because there is no way I will let an upset possum or rabid raccoon roam my basement. I cautiously approached the water well. The noise grew louder and more frantic. My heart pounded in my chest as I gripped my gun tightly, ready to defend myself. With each step closer, the sounds became clearer, and I could hear muffled cries for help. I peered into the darkness, straining my eyes to make sense of shapes. And then, as if emerging from my nightmares, there she was, tied, her clothes torn and covered in filth, her hair tangled, wounded on every inch of her body, her mouth shut, her hands firmly fastened. Her teary eyes called for help, but all I could do was just shoot. I pressed the trigger 1 time, 2, and even 3 times, with my eyes shut and my teeth grinding as hard as I could as she lay there, motionless and calm. I took my phone out of my pocket and did what I should have done before shooting. I took a picture and put myself in the frame, too. The dead body in the background, the dirty well, and me hoping none of it was real. Hoping I wasn't real, I took a picture, and there we were. The flash blinded my eyes, and I saw myself, a newborn killer, staring at the screen. She was still there. Oh, so still. Oh, there were too many flies for an empty house, and without wanting it, I finished someone else's dirty job.